Let's go ahead and go to Prosecutor Chris Becker after the mistrial declaration.
There we get set. Let me know when everybody's ready. I'll get going. Obviously, this was not the, what happened today is not what anybody was expecting or wanted. We're hoping for a verdict, and I think the family, and I don't know if they've talked here, but they're extremely disappointed, as am I. This was something we were hoping to get a conclusion. We thought we'd put a good case forward. Obviously, the jury thought differently. They were hung. I spent quite a bit of time talking with them. They're very open. And they're really a good jury. I mean, they paid attention, they took a lot of notes, they obviously were in there for a long period of time and took this case seriously. So this is, this happens. This happens quite a bit in general cases, but especially if you look across the country, there's a number of police-involved incidents where it ends up in a hung jury quite a bit. So we always knew there was a possibility. It's a difficult case. This was not an easy case. This is not a simple case. So at this point in time, I'm sure the next question is, what am I going to do? And I'm not going to make a decision right now. This is something I'm going to take some of the jurors obviously wanted to talk more. They may be reaching out, so I'm going to talk to them and take a look at everything, and I'll make a decision somewhere down the road. I'm not making a decision today.
Do you know how they were divided?
I do, but I'm not going to.
Talk about that?
Nope, I'm not going to say that.
It was close one way or the other?
I do, but I'm not going to get into the jury what the jury said. That's something that they told us in confidence, so I'm just going to hold it close to the vest. I know what it was, and so at this point in time, I'm not going to disclose that.
Is that going to help you decide whether to take this to trial again, what their vote was?
Yeah, it's a factor. I mean, definitely it's a factor. It's something that's kind of what I asked them. I want to get their feedback in terms of what the issues were. Just, talking to them, I can say they were on point. I mean, they were debating, sometimes you go back into a jury and you're like, what in the world where did you come up with that? What were you debating on that for? That was not the case here. They were on point. They were discussing the issues that I think both sides had. Obviously, there's a split in terms of what, who was believing what and which side. So this was, they were on point in terms of what they were discussing. So they were very thorough. So, it's going to be a factor, but I'm not going to say, well, because of this, I'm going to decide one way. It's still my decision ultimately based on all the facts and circumstances and looking at our case, looking at the defense case and what's going to happen down the road. So I talked to the family and I said, give me some time. We're all digesting this at this point in time, and it's something I'm going to talk with them too, because I think their feelings should play a role. So it's a process, and I'm not going to rush into it, and we'll go from there.
Can you share what some of the issues were that the jury
discussed? Just like just like we argued, just like the argument was, was was it the moment of the shot was fired? Was that what you're supposed to look at, or is it looking at the totality of the circumstances? More, I was arguing. Was the taser a dangerous weapon or not a dangerous weapon? It's basically what you saw in the trial and what the two sides focused on, respectively. That's essentially what they were focusing on, which I appreciate. I mean, they definitely knew what the issues were, and it sounds like they had a very thorough debate on those, and they couldn't reach a decision, which is not uncommon. So I'm not criticizing them at all. I've never had a jury take that many notes and ask the amount of questions, and quite frankly, very good questions. So they were clearly engaged, clearly dedicated, and I appreciate their work they did.
The jury foreperson came out and she looked really upset.
She was not. She talked about this. She's like, I know. She just slipped and hit her chin. So.
And the FOP State Lodge of Michigan put out a press release just a little while ago, basically saying that public pressure is what led you to file these charges.
No public pressure. If I had public pressure, just stuck my thumb up in the air and went with that. That had nothing to do with it. I base every decision based on the facts and based on what I think I can prove. This is not, I don't bow to public pressure, because there's a lot of cases I wouldn't issue or would issue based on what the public wants. I don't do that. So it had nothing to do with public presser.
Given the results of this, do you have any second thoughts about bringing this
No.
charge in the first place?
No, I don't. No, if I didn't believe in the case, I should have been trying it. It's a difficult case. This is not an easy case. I've been involved in a number of officer-involved incidents where I've cleared them, and if I clear them, that's because I believe it shouldn't go forward. This is one I felt, given all the facts and circumstances, that deserve to go forward. And so it's not a regret that we got a hung jury, and, I'm not surprised at a hung jury. This was a difficult case, and you've seen the split in the community, you've seen the jury was, there was issues there, so that doesn't change because, if you just try to you charge a case to win it, you shouldn't be doing this job, because that's not your job. Sometimes there are gonna be tough, difficult cases. This is a difficult one. It's difficult for the community, and so, but I still stand by the decision to charge.
Can you talk about what this has done to your relationship between your office and the Grand Rapids Police Department?
I've said this before, this has been pending for 3 years, and I'm preparing for a trial in 2 weeks with Grand Rapids Police Department. They're professional, we're professional. Clearly, there's people over there that don't agree with this decision, and, I respect them. There are some people I probably respect. Nobody's confronted me. I think we still have a relationship. It's a working relationship, and I think it's, we agree to disagree, but we still understand our roles and understand what we have to do for the community and protect the citizens, and, we disagree on a case, but I think there's plenty of cases that we still work together on and work together very effectively.
The lesser included offense of voluntary manslaughter, was that something requested by you, and if so, when was it requested?
It's a necessary lesser included of a second-degree murder, so that's common for any, I've never had a murder case where it didn't get included unless the facts didn't show it, and I think clearly with the facts here. So yeah, we did request it, but that's just the normal, because it's a necessary lesser included offense.
Can you say whether they had, dismissed the second-degree murder and were looking more
No,
toward manslaughter? Can you talk anything?
no, I don't know. We never got into that deep, so I really don't know how much what they were focusing on, in terms of.
As much as you rely on the possession of the taser question, you put up experts who, in their testimony, said he never had full possession. The defense showed their version of the video where you see it in his hand. How much did that affect the case? Did that affect jurors, and does it affect the way you present the case going forward?
Oh, it definitely affected jurors, because they were debating on that. I mean, that was one of the things they were looking at, is the taser. What was he intending to do with it? What, was it in his possession? So I think that was a key issue that both sides focused on, and they definitely looked at it. I can't get into their deliberations on how much it felt, but if I make the decision to retry it, that's something we'll take a look at and look, get the transcripts and go over it, and is there something we could have done differently? Is there what, every time you have a case, it's the same case, but you're probably not going to do it the exact same way, and things are going to come out differently. So, it is part of the case, and it's an issue, but, we'll see what happens.
So when speaking to the jury, can you talk about the emotions in that room when you're speaking with them? Are they pretty?
Yeah, to be honest, I think they were, there were some emotions, but, I've been in hung jury where you can tell, oh my gosh, I think these people are going to kill each other. And this was not that. I didn't get that feel. There was, they disagreed. There's, definitely some tension, but they got along, and they seemed to be, really trying to make an effort. So I didn't get the feel that it was like, a knockdown, drag out or anything like that. They, you brought from citizens of Kent County. They did the best they could. They had differences of opinion, but I think they were, talking about it, and it wasn't, hostile, at least the sense I got when I was talking with them.
Sorry about that.
Do you think, the first time the jury came back and said, we're stuck, Judge Mims sent them back in, this time she declared a mistrial. Do you think, had they been sent back again, they could have eventually reached a verdict?
No.
or-
No, this is, the note came back saying, basically, I don't think she read the whole note, but the note was, yeah, I think one of the instructions is don't, give up your deeply held personal beliefs to just reach a verdict, and that was phrased in the note essentially saying, hey, if you want us to debate more, somebody's gonna have to do that. And so that's the time, and Judge Mims made a correct decision saying, yep, we've come as far as you can. So I don't think would have done anything more.
Did you receive an indication that the needle moved at all from Tuesday when you were still?
They gave us an idea, and there was movement, yeah, definitely. It wasn't, they've been sitting in the same position for 3 days. So they definitely exchanged ideas, and there was changes.
Were you surprised by this outcome?
No, like I said, you look at across the country. I mean, I think I just found out the Memphis, that Memphis case went through, and that was a hung jury before. There was one in Detroit, a state trooper, that was a hung jury. These types of cases bring divisions, and people have strong opinions, and so I'm not surprised. I always thought this is a definite possibility that we're not gonna get a verdict, and that's what happened.
So if you retry this, did you change your strategy somehow?
Well, I'm not gonna tell you that now, so, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do now, so I've not even thought about what I'm gonna do if I do decide to make the decision to retry it. So, yeah.
Should the case be tried again, what would the difficulty in finding a jury pool that's not tainted?
Yeah, which I think the surprising thing is, I mean, we had an pretty extensive questionnaire that it's kind of, you guys are all here, and then how many people said, oh, we don't watch the news, to some extent, and that's kind of surprising, but, I thought we went faster in terms of picking a jury. We left a week because we thought, there'd be so many people that saw it and had an opinion and weren't going to be fair, and for the most part, there's a lot of people that didn't see it and didn't have an impact. This is maybe a little bit fresher, obviously, since this was 3 years ago versus, whenever we, if there is another trial, when that's going to be. But I think it's always amazing when you get into I've done a number of high-profile cases, how many people are like, oh, don't hear anything about it, don't know anything about it. I mean, there's a number of people that never heard about this case. So I'm not as concerned, but probably have to go the same process.
What's the timeline you're thinking of on a decision of what's next?
I'm not going to let this drag out. I mean, I'm going to, be considerate of the community. I mean, this is a big decision, but I'm not going to rush through it. But I'm not going to sit here and, it's not going to be June. I don't have a specific timeline, but I hope to know relatively quickly.
Seeing the outcome, how do you think you guys did on selecting a jury?
Like I said, they're very dedicated. I mean, they're a very dedicated group. You never know. Every time you go in, you'd like to think, they're going to come to a verdict and everything. But this happens. This is a difficult case, and this was a very engaged jury. They were, like I said, I've never seen this many notes being taken. I've never seen that many questions. I've never seen that many good questions. I mean, sometimes you get really dumb questions, and this, for the most part, this jury was not that. So, yeah, I think this was a good jury, and they did the best they could and didn't come to a conclusion. But that doesn't reflect on this was a bad jury because of that.
Do you think it was a factor that one of the jurors said her partner is a police officer?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe everybody that we asked the questionnaires, thought they could, you can't just exclude people because they have, a partner or know somebody that's a police officer. So, at the time we made the decision, it seemed to be fair and impartial. They all represented that. So, okay. Take one or two more, because.
You didn't use all of your challenges during jury selection. What led to the contentment between both you and the defense, who also had challenges?
Well, you always get, they had more than me, so at the time, when they had 4 left, I had 2 left, so I was kind of putting myself in a position. So at that point in time, I was fairly satisfied with the jury, and, I didn't want to, put myself in a situation where all of a sudden I got none, and they still could strike, and then I'm stuck with somebody who I really don't like. So that was just, it was a strategic move based on, I thought I liked the jury. You don't want to get too cute, just use the preemptories, just to use the preemptories, and then you're stuck, so.
If there is a retrial, is there any talk about the change in venue?
I would doubt it. I don't see why, like I just said, I don't see why there would be. It's, we've had enough people that didn't hear about the case or, when we picked this one, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Could you talk more about the reaction of the Leoya parents? I mean, how the emotions after this, you've met with them?
Yeah, I met with them. They're disappointed. This has been a long truck for them. I mean, this has gone on, longer than most cases, as you're familiar with. This is, we're 3 years afterwards, and here we just got done with a trial where a lot of times we've, maybe in the appeals process or it's over. So this is, I can't, I've talked with them. They're amazingly patient. They're amazingly, understanding. But I think they're frustrated, obviously. So, okay, thank you.
Obviously, a very thorough questioning of Prosecutor Becker, who just spoke for the first time after a mistrial was declared.